Hello, my name is Rich and welcome to Rich's World. Today I want to show you some footage of London at Hampton Court. I was there in September. I had a wonderful time, and if you have not been to Hampton Court and you want to go to Europe, put that on your list. But one of the reasons I liked Hampton Court so much was built by Cardinal Wolsey, and it was the most beautiful house in London at the time. He spared no expense and did all kinds of incredible things with that building in the time period. Henry VIII took a look at it, and Wolsey wasn't doing that well, so he thought maybe he should give it to the king. So King Henry would use it for weekends, and he didn't live there all year round, but he spent a lot of time there. And when he came in, there were plenty of servants. You got to realize Henry VIII was the wealthiest man in the world at the time and in the most powerful nation. He had plenty of money to put the gardens in he wanted. So you see these gardens and you think to yourself, gee, I'd like to replicate that. Well, maybe if you own a hedge fund and you're worth $1 billion. These are expensive gardens, but they're beautiful. Now, the next thing that happened in the 18th century, King George, the king that lost America, and his wife Caroline decided they wanted a house there and they were going to tear Hampton Court down. Well, thankfully, they only tore half of it down and started this brand new building. Well, when the war happened and all different things happened and he was having mental problems, thank God they stopped. So the plan was to totally rip down Hampton Court. So the back of the property is Georgian, it's larger, it's grander looking. So really you have two estates put together with a major court in the center and two different gardens, which is really interesting. Now, in the Georgian garden, it is larger, it's more expansive, it's sunken, and it's mostly all topiaries. So you're looking at two different things. Where Henry VIII's garden, there's espaliered fruit trees, there's more boxwoods, there's hedges, and you can see the difference. And that's really interesting to me, because there's two different techniques of gardening. Now remember, you see this and you want to duplicate it, and you can duplicate parts of these gardens. He was extremely wealthy and help was cheap, and he had help, gardeners and under gardeners. He had an orangery where they'd dig trees up and bring them in. It takes an enormous amount of money to garden in this style and a lot of labor. Keep that in mind. So you can see one or two things, and you say, oh, I like that. I'm going to put that in my garden. You might put in 3 or 4 topiaries, maybe 8. You're not going to put in 100. So keep that in mind as you look through the photos. And let's go to the video now and see what I videoed in Hampton Court. Here we are at the front of the castle, and you're looking at the coat of arms that's gold leafed and has a crown on the top to let you know the king lives there. The building is really interesting. It looks old to us, but in the time period, it was the latest, greatest thing. Brick. Brick was kind of new. Everything was built in stone before this. And he had glazed stones and different patterns on the wall. This was big stuff at the time, and this was a wow. So now we're going to go and go into the courtyard. So when they built the second half of the building in the 18th century, they made this huge courtyard in the middle. it is beautiful. And you have grass, and it's a place where you can be in the palace, but yet be outside. And all around the inside of that courtyard are stone walkways, and there's rooms for storage for wine and food and all kinds of things. So the help would be in those walkways, and then the grass in the courtyard would be for the family. This is Henry VIII's formal garden. It is dug out and has brick walls and shrubs around it to protect the plants. It's a windbreak, and it really lowers the temperature. It is absolutely beautiful, and there are a lot of man hours that go into a garden like this. You see it, you want to duplicate it. It's not easy to duplicate. This is the kind of garden, if you want to do a garden like this, you need a designer. You really need to hire a designer. You better get out your big checkbook. It's going to cost money and time. And if you can afford it and you want to do it, go ahead. There are people that put gardens like this in every year. Now, the building that you're seeing to the right is an orangery, which is a nice way of saying your greenhouse. And the reason they called them orangeries is people would put orange and lemon trees in so they could grow their own and bring them out in the summer. They had a lot of men to lift these things up and take them out. So there's one at Mount Vernon. That's a really good one to see if you live or you're visiting George Washington's home. He had one. They're usually always brick. Sometimes they're stone, but mostly brick. They have palladium windows, high ceilings, and they usually had some kind of wood-burning stove in there to heat them in the winter. They're beautiful. A lot of in England, a lot of the big estates that had them were turning them into places where they can put gift shops and lunch rooms and dining. They need to do something with those buildings. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed London. I would go back in a New York moment, or minute, I think they say. Anyway, it was very enjoyable. It is a little expensive. It's 30 cents more on every dollar you spend with subway, buses, food, everything. But it's well worth it. The gardens are absolutely beautiful. They don't call them a gardening nation for nothing. Future show, I'll be heading down to Williamsburg, Virginia in the spring, and we'll be talking about the English that came to America and how they brought with them the English garden and how they adapted it to America. So hope to see you next week. Have a wonderful day and be blessed.